Unlike most leadership models which focus on just the leader, the situational leadership model starts where the follower is at. It is a variable leadership style, and the leader exercises their leadership style based on the assessment of the followers' needs. Although Hersey focuses primarily on the business community, the model can easily be adapted to other settings. This video adapts this model to the outdoor field. Start with assessing the readiness of the follower. Readiness is subdivided into two components: ability and willingness. Ability is the knowledge, experience, and skill that an individual or group brings to a particular task or activity. Willingness has to do with the confidence, commitment, and motivation to accomplish a specific task or activity. This creates 4 cells that will determine the leadership approach. The participant in an R1 readiness state is inexperienced or most likely unable, and they are hesitant or insecure about hiking 15 miles the first day. The participant in an R2 readiness state is also inexperienced and is most likely unable, but is excited or motivated about the backpacking trip. The participant in a R3 readiness state suggests considerable experience or is able, but expresses concern or is insecure on behalf of those, in this case, that are less experienced. The participant in the R4 readiness state suggests considerable experience or is able, and is motivated to go on the backpacking trip. The leader's response is determined by where the follower is at. The leader adjusts their leadership style in terms of task behavior and relationship behavior. Task behavior involves goal setting, organizing, establishing timelines, directing, controlling, instructing, and directing. Relationship behavior involves giving support, communicating, facilitating interactions, active listening, and providing feedback. The relationship between task and relationship behavior creates a 2x2 table with 4 quadrants. These quadrants are: the first quadrant is high task and low relationship. The leader instructs how to tie a figure-8 follow-through knot while the student watches. Little communications or feedback is required at this point. In the second quadrant of high task and high relationship, the instructor provides feedback to the student on tying the figure-8 follow-through knot. In the third quadrant of low task and high relationship, the student questions the value of the knot and is unmotivated or is even insecure. The instructor communicates and provides feedback on why the knot should be used. The fourth quadrant is low task and low relationship. Since the student is able to tie the knot and is motivated to use it, the instructor can essentially delegate the task to the student and, of course, observe just to be sure. Hersey labels the 4 quadrants with single word identifiers. The first is telling, which is to provide specific instructions and closely supervise performance. The second is selling, which is to explain your decision and provide opportunities for clarification. The third is participating, which is to share ideas and facilitate in making decisions. The fourth is delegating, which is to turn over responsibility for decisions and implementation. Hersey is flexible on the labels and offers several alternatives. He notes that you may feel uncomfortable with one or more of these words in some situations. They may not always describe what you intend to do. For the outdoor field, probably the best descriptors are guiding, explaining, encouraging, and observing. And this author suggests substituting clarifying for explaining. For the sake of ease and consistency, the original labels were used in this video. However, feel free to use the modified labels. The 4 leadership behavior cells and labels are linked with the 4 follower readiness states. The leader assesses the follower's readiness and then applies the appropriate leadership behavior. The purpose of assessing the follower and applying the appropriate leadership style is to avoid mismatches. Mismatches can lead to problems, ineffective leadership, and accidents. The following examples are some mismatches. As part of the outing club trip, the trip leader is giving a pre-talk on the shore of the river. The trip leader is using a telling leadership style, lecturing the group of experienced and advanced paddlers on paddling technique and how to negotiate the rapids. They have run the river numerous times before and know the routes. The leader is using a telling leadership style when the group's readiness behavior calls for an observing or delegating leadership style. It is a canoeing class. A student performed the J-stroke and seeks feedback on what she is doing wrong. The instructor gives socio-emotional support, but doesn't provide specific corrective feedback. He simply notes that the student is doing well in the course and to keep up the good work. Seeking clarification and feedback, the student is unable and willing. The leader needs to provide a selling or explaining leadership style that explains what the student needs to do to correct her stroke. It is the night before the big climb. One of the students expresses apprehension about the climb. The leader responds with, "Let's work on our knot tying and recheck the gear." The student is able but insecure and needs high supported behavior, not additional instruction on skills that are already known. It is the first day of a 10-day backcountry canoe trip in the Boundary Waters. The leader notes that we will assign student leaders to make the leader decisions for the day, including navigation. I will be shadowing the group closely just in case. One of the students raises his hand and notes that he doesn't know how to use a map and compass. The leader is providing delegating or observing behavior, while the student needs a telling behavior to learn about map and compass skills. The situational leadership can be used to explain stereotypical leadership styles that are mismatches. The pseudo-4 is a person who thinks that they know how to do something when in fact they don't. They think that they are in an R4 state when they are really in an R2 readiness state. The critical element is the person's ability. For example, commercial rafters may produce pseudo-4s. The inexperienced rafter makes it down the river under the guidance and direction of the guide. The rafter goes away thinking that they can do it themselves. However, when on a trip alone without the raft guide, they find out otherwise. If you are in a leadership position, sometimes it is helpful to remind followers of their limited abilities and their reliance on your talents. The military sergeant tells you what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. The sergeant is locked into treating everyone as if they are in an R1 readiness state, and at best an R2 readiness state. Teachers often fall into this leadership style since they are institutionally in a situation where students are by definition in an R1 and R2 readiness state. Since the incompetent delegator doesn't know how to do it himself, he delegates the task to the follower. Unfortunately, the follower lacks the ability, which is why they are asking for assistance in the first place. The follower is in R1 or R2 readiness state. The leader is using an L3 or L4 leadership style. There is a mismatch and frustration results. A simple yet effective solution is to bring someone in to assist who knows how to solve the problem. Effective managers use this approach all the time. In an educational setting, the instructor can change leadership styles as the student learns. From the scenarios used, it is easy to piece together this progression. The instructor demonstrates the J-stroke. Little feedback is required. The student learning the J-stroke needs feedback of a selling or explaining leadership style. Substitute a canoeist for the hesitant climber, and the leader uses a participating leadership style for the canoeist worried about a difficult run the next day. And shadowing the group on a wilderness trip illustrates a delegating or observing leadership style, provided, of course, that the campers have the necessary skills. The concept of variable leadership styles and progression is not uncommon in the outdoor field. For example, Knowles uses a model relating the instructor's directivity versus the urgency to decide, depicted as a series of steps. As the decision becomes less urgent, it becomes less leader-directed and delegated to the group. The Boy Scout of America EDGE acronym denotes a 4-step teaching method. Explain what will be done, demonstrate it, guide and coach them as they practice a skill, enable or observe them to do the skill without intervention. In both models, there is movement from being directive to delegating or observing. In summary, the situational leadership is a variable leadership style where the outdoor leader assesses the follower's readiness state in terms of ability and willingness, and then provides a leadership style that addresses the readiness state of the follower. To avoid mismatches and to be an effective leader, it is important for the leader to listen carefully and assess actual ability, willingness, and insecurity. Good leadership involves a lot of factors. The situational leadership model provides an excellent foundation. It is a key component in developing good leadership skills and in reducing accidents.